Welcome to In the Blue. I am your host, Corey Frogley, and we've got a fantastic show today. In fact, it's a follow-up show because Virginia Moore did such an incredible job for us last time, and there's way too much information to cover that we had her back today for part two. And if you remember, Virginia's expertise is in building DSOs, dental service organizations. Now, if you're a chiropractor, don't drop off this show. If you're a physical therapist, a medical provider, we still want you here because this is part of why we're bringing these two worlds together. There is a tremendous consolidation happening in the dental world where these dentalpreneurs, these dentists are opening several locations. In some cases, we're talking there's behemoths out there with 500 and 800 locations. And that's what's amazing with where these other verticals are falling behind very quickly. And with the evolution in the chiropractic and regenerative space, as many of our audience knows, we're developing systems that allow profit margins that are much better, much more comparable with some of these other types of verticals that are then allowing you to bring together the possibilities of multiple locations. And there's some amazing docs out there in several verticals that have that entrepreneurial spirit. Now, the problem is that opening 1 to 4 is a lot of work, but there's so many of you hitting your heads on that space where you're starting to realize the profit margins aren't that great from 1 to 4. And you might have one, amazing location and 3 limping along, or maybe even 3 decent ones and 1 limping along. And what Virginia's going to help us understand today is how to get that foundational systems in place so that you can get past that really sticky spot. And we're seeing that, and maybe Virginia, you can clarify this for me, but between about 3 and 5 locations, if you can get past that, then all of a sudden the profit margins open, the revenue streams come in, and the expansion begins to really take place a lot more smooth. So again, she's going to give us that expertise today on this show. And Virginia, we couldn't be happier to be with you. In fact, your show last time has over 550 views already. So we're so excited to have you back, Virginia.
Well, Corey, thanks so much for having me. And, as we talked about last time, this is a subject that really I've been deeply interested in because, like you said, oftentimes that 3 to 5 practices is where, the owner doctors, investors look and say, the wheels are starting to fall off of this. And you might have had that first 1 or 2 practices that did extremely well, but this starts to grow and grow. And the name of the game is not having the tail wag the dog, being in control of it. So today I really want to speak about the 4 components that I think are very, very important building blocks. And I'm also going to mention some of the roadblocks that we want to make sure that we tear down. So those 4, real briefly, are first and foremost is the why. And we talked about that last time. However, I want to spend a bit of time again on the why and how that really impacts the culture of your practice. Next is who's where, who's responsible for what, roles and responsibilities. And then the third is going to be the system structure, which you just mentioned, and that's crucial to success. How do we have that set up in such a manner that it's replicable regardless of who's operating the system? And then last, which is a real fun area, and of course what BlueIQ does so well, which is monitor for success.
Yeah, beautiful. Love it. Well, let's jump in. And again, we want to welcome our viewers. Tracy, thanks for joining us today, and obviously a big fan of Virginia, so thanks for being with us today. Virginia, jump in. Let's go into that why, because that is such a powerful foundational point.
You bet. This is one of the biggest roadblocks that I see as practices, DSOs starting to run into if they're not rock solid on their why. And most importantly, that everybody on that team understands the why. So why are we doing what we do? Why are we acquiring additional practices? What are we seeking to accomplish and achieve? And what's the importance of everybody on the team? So the why establishes the culture. And without it, it's almost like trying to get somewhere without your GPS, or being out on the open ocean in a ship without any means of knowing which way is the direction that you want to head. So the why is extremely important. And when that's missing, that's definitely a roadblock, because that's where we see a lot of turnover. And most importantly, we see frustration because the profitability tends to drop off significantly. And of course, if you've got investors involved, those people are not happy when that
Yeah, that's when the
happens.
stress lands on your shoulders.
You bet. You bet it does. So, I would say why starts in the interview process, sharing the mission, the purpose, the why, and seeing how that applicant responds. Is this something that they can get on board with, or is this just another job to them? How do they respond to the why? And then
Hmm.
once you bring people on board, how do you orient them to the practice? Because that can be the make or break. I've seen some beautiful orientations where the practice owner or owners will record a welcome message that is one of the first things that a new employee listens to.
Smart,
Yeah,
smart.
because they're sharing their why, and in that message showing their enthusiasm and passion for why they're doing what they're doing, why building and acquiring more practices is important because of the care they can provide people, and the employment opportunities and so forth. So part of sharing the why is walking the talk, making sure that right from the interview process through initial days of employment and ongoing, that's something that's reviewed and refreshed. And if you ask every person on from the C-suite on, through, what is the why, everyone would be able to communicate that effectively.
Yeah.
One of the exercises that I think could be very helpful, and this is great, especially when you've got multiple locations that might cross state lines, is monthly having a meeting, and people can offer up, this is how I saw, Josie or Teresa exemplify our why. And it
Hmm.
keeps that why vibrant and fresh.
That's smart. Yeah, and again, in our experience, I don't know if there's much more powerful than when team members find an organization that the organization's why resonates so strongly with them that they actually adopt the why as their own.
Hmm.
And then you mentioning like highlighting team members across the organization and how they actually personify the why, that's a beautiful suggestion.
Because it takes it from something that is something we checked off our list. We have our why, and instead makes it really a living day to day. This is why we do what we do. Certainly,
Yeah,
everyone needs a paycheck,
I
but how
love it.
you do what you do, the why behind it makes all the difference. And there are many people that want to be part of something greater than themselves.
Yeah.
We
So
see that across the board.
so taking that why then, you talked very specifically about using that. That's the so-called foundation, right? We've got to take that now, and this next level, it doesn't even really happen unless you build the why first. So how does that transition then into this clarification and communication?
It's if we keep coming back to that why in order to say, how are we going to do this, and like you said, integrate it into our communication, then our communication is all about achieving the objectives of the why. So what it does is it keeps everyone on the same sheet of music, is the way that I see it. And when everyone's playing the same music at the same time, you get a wonderful outcome. um, and when I look at, next, which is point number two, putting people where they can serve best, this is about setting expectations. It goes beyond what everyone thinks of as so boring and unnecessary, which is a job description. But
Hmm.
it goes into how will you, in your role in this DSO, help to fulfill the why? And again, I see that is vitally important all the way from the C-suite to the sterilization techs, and that why seeping out into anyone that comes into contact with the practice. It might be a lab, it might be a supply rep, but they are crystal clear on the why of this DSO. And that differentiation goes a long way towards success, and success both, how everyone feels about the work they do, and very
Yeah.
importantly about the bottom line, about it being
Mm.
a successful bottom line.
Yeah. Well, and as you and I both know, that leads right into training systems. And this is, I mean, as you're watching the show, and if you're getting to know Virginia, she comes across as a sweet, motherly type that I would love to sit down and just chat with all day because she's just so amazing and just full of love. But what she is unrelentless at is getting these foundational systems in. And this training piece, talk to us about this systemization of training and how important that is.
Thanks, Corey, because this is the make or break, quite frankly. And I'm not bashing dentists as a whole, but I've got to tell you, sometimes it's remarkable to me that a doctor or group of doctors will say, well, we're, thinking of letting, Chelsea go because she's just not doing her job well. And my
Yeah,
first question always is, what type of training has Chelsea received? And I'll hear things like, well, she's been in dentistry for 12 years. Well, she's been in your practice, experiencing your practice 0 when she came on board.
right.
So is she getting trained in the way that your DSO does things? If not, we've got to give her the training. And
Mm-hmm.
too often I see the training is on the fly. Let me give you an example. Why do we bring new people on a Monday? Why do we say, okay, your first day of work is a Monday? Is that not the
It's
craziest
the
game?
craziest day.
You know,
Yeah,
emergencies from the weekend and the schedule falls apart, you name it. So they're thrown into this whirlwind.
right.
Instead, have them start on a Wednesday and have the first 8 days of their presence being training.
Mm,
And this is such an unfamiliar concept in DSOs because so many times we need that position filled. We drop
yeah,
some, they've had this experience. So instead, give people the opportunity to be trained to be their best. And Corey, I also want to clarify, when I say systems, I'm talking about everything from how the telephone is answered, what is the greeting, and
yeah,
more importantly than the words, what's the tone of voice? I think we've all had the experience where we've called a place of business to feel like, yikes, I'm interrupting this person's day, or they're not interested in talking to me, I'm not important. So it's what words, what tone, how do you handle questions, all the way through payment arrangements and how will the new patient experience flow, who will be involved. Again, how will that exemplify our why? So when
yeah.
a patient walks out, they're crystal clear on why they want to continue to come back.
Here's a quick question for you then. With the organizations that you work with, how many do you walk into and they have their training manuals in place, they have training videos, they have audio files to listen to? I mean, when a new patient or a new employee comes on board, it's just all laid out. Is that a common thing or is that uncommon?
Unfortunately, it's so uncommon. And my dream is of a day when you can walk into a practice and see those things, because that's where we start to decrease something that drives any practice owner crazy, which is turnover.
Hmm.
I feel very strongly that a lot of turnover that we're seeing in these recent years has a lot to do with employee frustration, because who wants to come to work every day and not be successful? And the reason for that lack of success is not knowing how to do your job in the way that um, is to be done in that specific practice.
Hmm.
So yes, I would love to see that. Unfortunately, that is a real shortfall.
Yeah.
And a lot of times new employees are left up to, well, you've had experience at this, and they start answering the phone in a way that's not agreeable. Confrontation or corrective feedback is something that people aren't real keen on. And so, how hurtful is that when 10 months into my employment, 10 months later, I find out that you don't care for the way I'm answering the phone?
Yeah, that doesn't feel good.
It affects trust. Because I'm
Yeah.
thinking, wow, if you have to wait 10 months to tell me this, what else are you not pleased about?
Yeah. So again, as you mentioned, making sure that you're bringing team members into a culture where training is expected, reviews are expected, the systems are established. And yes, we want your experience from other locations, but not for you to just implement. we want you to then bring that to team meeting and let's talk about it in reviews and maybe we'll implement those things. But
Exactly.
yeah,
Right. And so importantly is there's the way. And there are a lot of different ways to do things, of course, but in DSO-A, there's the way we do things. In DSO-Z, there's a different way in some of these. And that's the important thing. That, again, brings us back to culture and to why. So, for instance, I think of a very important system is the ReCare system, continuing care, having patients return at prescribed intervals. And that is language I would use. What we're prescribing for you instead of, the cookie cutter 6 months or whatever it might be. And with the ReCare system, continuing care, we can tie that back to our why.
yeah,
Why do we shoot for a goal of having 95% of our patients leave today's appointment with their next
the
continuing
next
care
appointment. Yeah,
because it ties with our why. We're committed. If our why is, which hopefully it is in some part, our commitment is to the overall health and wellness of our patients.
yeah,
That's where it translates into systems and establishing goals that if someone says, well, why don't we just have patients call and schedule when they feel like it? Is that supportive of our why? In my opinion, no. But when
mm,
you say we're shooting to pre-schedule 95% of our patients in
yeah,
continuing care, that's supportive of your why.
yeah, yeah, smart. And that comes right down to that training. I love it. Training, training, training. So let's talk about this because the only way you're going to know if your team is implementing the training, because you can't be there, you can't look over their shoulder every day. We talk about how the data tells us if the systems are in place.
Right.
Um, Talk to us about that because you are a big proponent of monitoring for success.
I am. I'll tell you, numbers don't lie. And this is why I'm so excited about BlueIQ, my relationship with you folks, because in a DSO especially, this is crucial. If you are not monitoring for success, you will end up unsuccessful. The elimination or the void here is a huge, enormous roadblock to your success, especially as a DSO. And so to that extent, we need to, I always think of monitoring for success. There's three components to it. One is the data collection, and that's where you folks come in so beautifully. Number two is analysis of that information. So for instance, we have to be careful in our analysis because a low collection percentage on average for the last 3 months may not mean that our financial coordinator is not doing a good job. There can be
Mm-hmm.
other components to that. And so the analysis leads to step number 3 of monitoring for success, which in a nutshell is action. So based on our analysis, then we take action.
Mm-hmm.
And that action is as good as our analysis.
Yeah,
Now, you
that's
know,
smart.
can I share a quick example that I
Please.
share frequently to give a very different analogy, monitoring for success? But it comes down to those 3 things: data collection, analysis, and action. So let's say, Corey, the two of us are driving along, and I'm driving, and all of a sudden the car stops running. I safely pull us to the side of the road. So the two of us look at each other. It's like, well, we got to get where we're going. What's causing this problem? So the two of us confirm. We say probably the 2 big issues of the car stopping, not running. 1 could be out of gas, or 2, dead battery. So I say, you know what, Corey, back a ways. I saw a gas station. I'm going to run back there, see if I can get some gas, and then we'll be on our way. You say, terrific. You got your laptop. You're doing some work. I head down to the gas station. Lucky day, not only do they have gas, but there's a gasoline tanker there. And he says, you know what? I'll give you a ride back to your car. I've got more gas than you could ever need. I say, terrific. So here I am riding in the gasoline tanker. We show up back at the car, and he fills up the tank, and he could fill us up 1,000,000 times over. So we're looking ready to take off and get to our destination. I go to start the car won't run. So this is data collection. The car's not running. Analysis. It could be that it could be a dead battery. It could be we're out of gas. It could be a number of other things, but I'll keep it pretty tight. So here we have provided a solution, action, which is gasoline. However, it's not the right action because come to find out it's a dead battery. So that whole oil tanker could have emptied all they had into our car and it still wouldn't have started. So we go back to data collection, making sure that your input is accurate. Number two, the analysis. Make sure that you're considering all the potential aspects that could be creating a number that's off, and look at other data. And this is again where you folks are so terrific. So I can look at the big picture of data so that when I make the analysis and we take action based off of that, that is the action that gets us back on the road.
Isn't that funny that dentists and docs do this every day with their patients, but yet they don't apply those same principles to their practice? And gas ain't cheap.
No.
Like, I don't know too many of us that have the money to just keep throwing solutions at the wrong problem, at the wrong diagnosis.
You know, you hit the nail on the head, because oftentimes I see that same solution gets thrown at the problem. It's like, wait a minute, you're not getting the result you want. We've got to look at different solutions. So yeah. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, love it. No, fantastic. Kind of as we unfortunately have to start winding down here, what would you say is one of the significant differences between these DSOs that are now just taken off? They're like acquiring 2, 3, 4 locations a year versus these guys that are stuck at the 2, 3, 4 location level, and they keep saying they're going to acquire that next one, but they're just, like as you say, the wheels are falling off. Mm-hmm. What is that thing they can do to get over that barrier?
I've really got to tell you, it's collecting the data and doing an analysis and seeing what's creating this roadblock. Because what I know is if you give me the data, I can do an analysis and I can help pinpoint where that roadblock is. It may be a cash flow issue. It may be overhead. It may be that you have systems in place that are not being worked in a consistent fashion, so you have an inconsistent outcome. So to me, it's always looking at that data and knowing what is the goal and objective here. So, I've shared this many times. Sometimes when I'm speaking and someone will come up to me afterward and say, how do you think we're doing? We produced, pick a number, 120,000 last month. I can't get excited or be concerned until I know what was your goal or objective. Yeah. So that's the beauty of data collection. I need to have a number of the actual and then compare it to the goal, whether the goal is a industry norm or it's a goal that the practice has set for themselves. Yeah. So that's where I start to see the wheels start to fall off and the duct tape come out and things are just not working when you're trying to build past 3 to 5 practices. So to me, it comes back to let's look at the data, do an analysis, and then take the appropriate action.
That's a powerful tip. And to just support that, I was doing a demo with a practice that used to be part of a DSO, and then the associates bought their individual practices and dissolved the DSO, and now we're running their own location. And as I was doing this demo, they were going through and they're asking, well, does your software do this? Does your software do that? And then because they're asking about other systems and other features to help them, in their mind, grow their location. And so they said, what do you think we should implement first? I said, well, I don't know what your objectives are, what your goal is, where you're at. Because they were talking about getting branding, a new website, changing their marketing, training their team members. I said, we need to look at your data. We need to find out where you do need to take your first action steps. And just exactly what you just said, without the data to do that analysis, it's just throwing a dart at a dartboard.
Exactly. Too many times I see DSOs especially in their growth period, their acquisition is happening on a pretty rapid basis. where there's a significant investment into marketing, and it works. The phone's ringing, people are coming in, but the giant roadblock is they're not prepared for that. The systems aren't in place. So yes, you might have a lot of people coming in the door, but they're also going out the back door because they're not having a rock solid experience that has them saying, I'm coming back here time after time. So again, like you said, it's all about the data and analysis, because you can, like I said, pour as much gasoline as you want in that car. But if the issue is a dead battery, you're still going to be sitting there.
I love it. So start with your why. Share your why with your team members.
Yes.
Build your systems upon your why, and tenaciously implement those systems and train with those team members to get putting those in. And then monitor so you know what systems to fine tune. Is that a pretty good overview of what we've covered today?
Beautifully, yeah.
Virginia Moore, she is a wizard at this stuff, and amazing at implementing. In fact, one of the things that Virginia will do with you, especially if you have a BlueIQ account, is she is offering a free call to either look at your data, and however you have your data. It can be in spreadsheets, it can be, hopefully you're not still using spreadsheets, hopefully you've graduated to this millennia and you're using BlueIQ. But however you're getting your data, she'll look at that, she'll analyze it, and she'll help you pinpoint. And seriously, within 15 minutes, because she has a absolute black belt in this, she can help you see insights to your roadblocks and help you get past those in ways that it literally could take you years to figure out. So we're going to put links into the show just below this. Click on her links that will take you to her, how to contact Virginia, how to interact with her, how to set that up so that she can look at your organization and help you scale, because again, that's what BlueIQ is trying to bring you, is the tools of scalability, and to take you from either a single location and grow it to the practice of your dreams, or build a DSO or multi-location practice that you've always wanted to build. So Virginia, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, you're so welcome, Corey, and to all the viewers. Again, this is doable. Growing your DSO is doable. Just don't skip over the foundational pieces, because that's where you start to think, how did this happen? It's not zooming along as it did in the beginning. So foundational pieces are crucial, and I'm here to help.
Beautiful. This won't be the last time. Remember, Virginia Moore, this is a part 2 of the previous show. If you missed that one, go back and finish watching it. We are in the blue with BlueIQ every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern. Grateful to have you on our show today. Look forward to having you back. Have a great weekend.